Hello, everybody. Welcome to this final artist talk of the 18th annual member show at the Art Gallery of Southwestern Manitoba. My name is Lucie Lederhendler, and I'm the curator here at the Art Gallery, which is located on Treaty 2 territory, the traditionally shared lands of the Cree, Oji-Cree, Anishinaabeg, Dakota, Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the Whitehead Foundation for its continuing support of this annual exhibition and its increased support this year because we've been allowed to go back to in-person programming, provide this to remunerate some artists for participating in talks like this. So for anybody joining us from home online, you can interact with the artists, ask us questions, leave your comments in the comments section of whichever platform you're joining us from, and we can respond to them here live. So without any further ado, I'd like to bring up our artist panel. We have Jenna Bardarson, Douglas Fraser, Oreo, Jan Brancewicz, and Tengnamoe. Welcome, everybody. So, hi there. Because there's all five of you, we're gonna do a format where we just walk around and introduce ourselves briefly before we go into your work that you submitted to the show. So in no particular order, I'd like to ask Jenna, can you introduce yourself, your artistic practice, what brought you to the AGSM?
I'm a local to Brandon, Manitoba, that mainly specializes in acrylic paintings, colorful ones of animals. And I guess for me, I love acrylics because of their brightness and resilience to layering. And I love how workable an acrylic painting can be. I'm mainly a self-taught artist. Haven't taken most of my art just in high school, but I have also taken a class in AGSM. That's kind of how I found out about this, and I've taken a couple other classes. But I think also like my career in hairdressing has kind of kept me interested in being creative over the years, given that I'm working with color wheel quite often, and shaping and sculpting hair too. Also I think, I'm also a person that suffers from chronic illness. Painting to me is a great distraction for while I'm in pain, having a pain flare. That's pretty much all I got for that.
That touches on so many themes that we talked about last week as well. We had a hairdresser, we had people who were dealing with chronic illness and using art to address that. So that's really interesting. Thank you. Douglas Fraser, hello.
Oh, hi, Lucie and friends. I'm a part-time professional visual artist with complementary interests in art education, photography, computer media, poetry, and handmade paper. I use a variety of water-based and dry media, acrylics, watercolors, pencils, as well as pen and ink. My main focus nowadays in these recent years has been with acrylics. I moved to Brandon in fall of 2019 from Alberta, and my formal academic background as an adult is in materials science and engineering. And I worked with the Canadian nuclear industry, the oil industry, post-secondary education for engineering technologists, and as a technical advisor for small business. My artistic formation, like Jenna, is self-directed learning or self-taught, and taken a number of courses and workshops and my own experience over the years. Many people have contributed to my formation, artists, teachers, and family members and friends. A variety of my own lifelong learning priorities and intellectual interests inform my art. And so my artistic works tend to be interpretations of my own personal experience. I paint and draw what I think and feel, and my stylistic interests include both objective and non-objective works, represented currently by abstract expressionist and color field styles, as well as figures set especially in contemporary genres. I've had my own rocks and water phase of life, in other words, landscapes, which were more of a focus for me when I lived in Alberta. Occasionally, I produce cartoons for my own amusement, and that are sometimes shared selectively with a network of others, whether they want them or not. So I've been told, just to finish up, I've been told that my works are often recognized for their harmonious treatment of color, abstract sensitivity, and inherent metaphor. My own personal objective is to create works for people to enjoy, pieces that prompt a memory, remind of a place, recall an experience, suggest a metaphor, or strike a chord.
Thank you. From the work of yours that I've seen, even just in the member show, I can see that the variation of complexity of subject matter has no bearing on the complexity of the treatment of the surface of the paint. So last year, your contributions were very much about that flat color field, and this year there's much more human interaction in these pieces, but that's still there. The treatment is still very similar.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
See all of that coming in. All right, Oreo, welcome.
Thank you. So I'm right now in my first year of Brandon University program, Bachelor of Fine Arts. I'm majoring in digital media and design, the one which is integrated with ACC. So I would be doing 2 years in Brandon University and then the last 2 years in ACC. And I'm hoping to learn a lot. I am learning a lot since I moved in Brandon last year in December from India. So it was a challenge for me. I was new here and a new environment, new climate, and new people. So I was hoping to get a lot of new experiences and challenges. And this 1 year has been very nice to me. And I obviously love art, and I've been doing art since fourth grade, I think. Yeah, I started art classes in fourth grade, and having that passion since. And art gallery has obviously helped me a lot learn different types of art and disciplines and everything. So yeah, I'm enjoying.
I'm gonna drill you about this interest in digital art, which seems contrary to the really manual work that I've seen from you. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Oreo. Jan,
Yes.
welcome.
What can I say? My artistic experience started about 75 years ago. As a little child, I was in kindergarten, and my teacher decided that one of my paintings that I did there should go to the International Exhibition of Children Art in Hiroshima. That was 2 years after the explosion of atomic bomb there. I never got the painting back. I don't know what happened with it, but I was mad at my teacher because she insisted that I do some changes to my painting, which I did, and I didn't like what she suggested. But the painting were there, I have no control.
Do you remember what the painting was? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Actually, the painting sat in my mind for many years, because in the 80s, 1980s, so that's quite the span, I decided to paint that painting over again. And I painted the way I remember that painting as a child. And the painting sold immediately to a lover of horse. This was a painting of a horse. The painting was sold. I was happy. Never painted horse again. But that was just the beginning of my artistic career, which did not last for a long period of time, because I decided, instead of being an artist, I want to be a poet. So I started writing poetry. I was still drawing all the time. I was drawing because my grandmother was encouraging me. You have a talent, you have to draw, you have to be an artist. She collected all my drawings, but I was writing poetry. And in 1960, first of my poems were published. So I was published writer. Then there was anthology of poetry published in 1964, I believe it was, and my poems were in that anthology together with the future Nobel Prize winner in poetry. So I was translated into German. So I was quite accomplished writer. Unfortunately, in 1965, I moved from Europe to Canada. I could not speak English at all, so I couldn't write. I decided I will write one poem. I wrote one poem, I read it and say, who is going to read that poem in Canada? So I give it up on this and follow my grandmother's wishes and went back into painting. And I'm still in painting. I was teaching painting in high school, at university, in the art gallery, everywhere. I did have exhibitions, international exhibitions. My work is in collections of 2 museums in Europe. So I did accomplish something. I don't write poetry anymore. I just paint.
Thank you very much.
Basically, in a few words, my artistic career.
Yeah, it's a long one. It's a long one. I also know from one of your private students that you're really adept at traditional techniques. You make your own varnish. You do, you find your own pigments.
Oh, you want to know more about techniques?
I just happen to know that this is something about your art practice that I find interesting. Yeah.
I use all kinds of techniques. I experimented with everything. I learned when I was learning art in Europe. I did have some professors who taught me many techniques of Renaissance artists.
Yeah.
Which was very, very important because those techniques are great.
Yeah.
Then I experimented in Canada already with silver point drawing, which Leonardo did many of them. Mm-hmm. I went to the art supply store in Winnipeg and in Toronto. They didn't know what I was talking about. You couldn't buy any stuff for this. So when I was in London, I was in a museum and they have notebooks of Leonardo. And one of the directors of the museum explained to me, he speaks Italian, so he read and he found description of the medium used in silver point. And he copied that for me and said, try it.
Yeah.
Of course, it was gibberish. It was gibberish. I am not a chemist. I did a friend chemist at university, professor, and he identified some of the chemicals, but he could not identify one chemical. We didn't know what to do. But he suspected that this is some form of lubricant to let the silver glide on the paper. And I thought, what can I use? And I use Liquatex painting medium, and it works wonderful. And I produced some very nice drawings in silver point.
I want to talk more about technique, but I think I'm going to hold that until we're looking at your works that you have here, because we'll see that really vast variety. Okay, thank you very much. So Tengnamoe, I think am I pronouncing that right?
Tengnamoe.
Tengnamoe.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I always wanted to call by the name Tengnamoe, but my real name is Clemente.
Your name is what you make of it. So this is the first time that you've been in the member show, right?
Yes, and then this is my first exhibit. Exhibit. Yeah.
I'm surprised. Yeah.
Yes, because I was born by 1976, and with my mom is a teacher, and I grew up. Oh, I hang out in my uncle's studio when I was 4 years old. So that's when I start uh, really liking to paint. But my uncle is an artist in the Philippines, and that's where I get my passion. And I I stopped for 30 years, I think. For I didn't do any paintings. I moved to different careers, and then 9 years ago I moved here to Canada. I didn't realize that I'm gonna sit here in front of you guys, and I never thought that I'm gonna paint again. I started it only last year, and then never stopped painting.
Yeah, and you're sitting in front of your paintings, aren't you?
I got a lot of paintings. I don't stop painting since last year.
So I'm actually, why don't we just get into it? Because I think that a part of your story can really be seen in the works that you've submitted to the show. You use a lot of found materials, correct?
Yes. Those materials are the materials that I bought only is the paint and then the brushes, but the boards and everything are going to the dump, and I just recycled it. And
I think you can see all of that texture really plays into the way that you apply the paint.
yes, I always those are layered paint, and I use enamel to make some texture of it. I mix enamel and then acrylic.
Right. And you submitted 3 pieces that are part of a series.
Yes. And I got some up here at the background.
Yeah. What is it that attracts you to the hay bales?
I don't know, because in the Philippines you don't see any hay bales, and then everything that I don't see in the Philippines, I like. First time I see the elevator here, I was so amazed, and never stopped painting elevators after that. Yes.
Because there is something really, I want to say, uncanny about the
Yes.
details in the landscape.
Yes.
There's these perfect circles. They're built little objects. Right?
You know what? They're not circle. When they're wet, I research first before I paint or draw anything. And this one is, you could see it is circle, but when it's wet, it's flat at the bottom. So you could see it's flat at the bottom there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Interesting. And then a classic element of prairie landscape painting is that prairie sky. So that's why this one is so interesting to me. This is the largest of the 3, is that you've taken away the prairie sky, you've taken away the expansiveness and just done the hay bales.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
here you have your elevator and all of that distance, that flatness, right?
Yeah.
So other series that you've worked on, you told me once that whenever you get blocked, you go right back to Banksy.
Sometimes, not anymore. Maybe when I was last year, I was finding myself like, of course, 30 years. So you don't know. I don't know if I could be painting again, and I was just experimenting. Who is Tengnamoe? What could he paint? And I don't know what do you call my forte now. I think it's, I called it Tengnamoeism, something like that. And that's my art.
Yeah, great. So just scroll through them again. You see that wide variety, but still so consistent. There's such a clear through line, even with these different treatments. And in person, just really, really material. Really
well, last night I'm still sketching about the hay bales.
Yeah, not gonna end. Yeah. And I think everybody's from Brandon except you, and you're from Carberry.
I live in Carberry for 4 years now. I was born in the Philippines, and then 9 years ago I moved to Canada from BC to Newfoundland, and last up, this is my home now. This is Carberry.
So you're not at all the farthest reaching member, and certainly the AGSM likes to think that its reach goes that half hour down the road. So welcome, thank you. Now,
You're welcome.
at random, here we go, Doug.
Okay. I guess this year I submitted 3 pieces. This is one of them. Just an example of some figure work that I do and have done. The name of this is, and this one. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's like a movie, eh?
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyways, this one is called Remembering, and it's based upon a moment that my mother and my daughter were having some years ago, shortly after our daughter married, and they were sharing memories of that occasion through a book and a chat and so on and so forth. So this is a painting that sat partially finished for many years. Part of what we're challenged by as artists is, what do you put in a painting and what do you leave out? And what you leave out is every bit as important, or maybe more important, than what you put in, because there's so much rich texture all around in the world. So this one I did a little bit of experimenting with knife work.
Yeah, and I did have a detail of that. Yeah.
For essentially the background and context. So that's a bit of a few thoughts on that piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll keep a pin in that idea of the color field as we move on to as well.
Yeah. This is a smaller piece, and again, it's one that I've entitled Pals, and again, it's an image again that is prompted by 2 of our grandchildren playing together a few years back now. They're now teenagers, so they're a little bigger than that. Anyways, the idea was they were out there playing together, and I was asked if I would, paint that moment. So this is what came out of my brush and my paints, right? And as I looked at this when it was hanging in the gallery, I hadn't thought about this before, but there's a difference of about 2 years between the 2 of them, and it's clear who's in charge because she's holding the bag of chalk. So
100%.
Yeah.
But it's a benevolent reign, I think.
Yeah. And this third piece would be an example of one I did. The idea came a couple of years ago when I was talking with friends at a wedding in Toronto, and because I was still interested in doing color field work, this is an example of that. Now, the background of this has perhaps 10 or 12 or more layers of transparent acrylic colors on them. And I started with light colors like yellows and oranges and reds, and gradually built it up. And of course, as you add more layers, it gets darker and darker and darker. So this would be an example of a glazing technique that I sometimes use to achieve the final impression that I'm looking for.
And I did not do a close-up because the camera couldn't possibly capture it. But in person, it's a very vibrant. No, it's vibrating. It vibrates.
There you go.
Yeah, and also the within that, there's also a lot of motion in the line work.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a mixture of a line drawing and a painting, right? Blend of the 2 ideas, concepts, techniques. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it plays kind of in a pendulum swing between flatness and depth, flatness and depth, flatness and depth.
Right. Yeah, I can't make up my mind what to do, right?
Yeah. Like every good art teacher, just guess, just try it.
That's right.
And then this one is substantially larger than the other 2. Pals, I think, is only 8 by 10, maybe.
Yeah, it's that's actually about 12 by 16, I think. Yeah, but anyways, it's a smaller one than the other.
Yeah, it's small, and this one's just medium, which is in both of the cases of this and Remembering, the snapshot quality to it, I think, is really interesting. The over shoulder. I know that you also have done some kind of street views of people walking. That's a little voyeuristic in the same way, if I may.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, welcome.
In no particular order. Oreo.
Okay. So this one's called peace because that's the feeling you get when you hug someone or hug your loved one. This was a part of my hands project for the painting one class.
Can you tell us about the Hands Project? It's pretty famous in Brandon.
Yeah. So for the hands project, we had to make eight 9 by 9 inch paintings on the stretched canvas, and all of them had like different techniques. For this one, we had to do it in warm and cool colors. Basically, the idea is that the cool colors recede and the warm colors are seems closer on a picture plane. And then we had the glazed and confused. We had one where we had to use a palette from a famous painter. So I used Caravaggio's palette in one of my impasto painting, and then one was all green where we only had to use the green color, and like we had to make minimum 12 shades of that to like get the requirement of the assignment done. And all of the paintings were a challenge, and it was so fun painting hands.
I think you have to paint like, or you just do hands for an entire semester, basically, right?
Yeah, it was basically I think we were given like 4 or 5 weeks in total to complete all the paintings.
Yeah.
And the estimated time for each painting that we had was about 5 hours. Yeah, about 5 hours.
It's a good thing, I think, because people that find hands easy, forget them, good for them. But people that find hands hard sometimes give up and then end up just never never having any hands in their paintings. And then you submitted this larger work on paper.
And then this one is on the Stonehenge paper, 22 by 27 inches. This was the reveal and conceal assignment for drawing one. So in this assignment, we basically we had to make an idea where some like an object or an idea was revealed or concealed. That was the basic central theme. So I decided on the element of Polaroids because they capture memories and places that we find interesting or that are close to our hearts. So for the composition, I decided to stack all of them on top of each other so that only one is visible. And the one that is visible is a photograph of my first diary entry in my bullet journal, which is a very important thing for me. So all the other photographs are essentially a very memorable um, point in my life. So that was the assignment.
Thank you.
And then this one was the ceramic piece. It was coil pot. Yeah, it was coil pot for the clay one class. And we had to make the pot with coiling technique, of course. Um, it was very challenging for me since I had never worked in clay before. So it was very challenging. Plus, it was also fun because um, like I saw like there's so many possibilities in clay, and I just wanted to experiment so many things. But unfortunately, I'm a student and I don't have that time because of all the assignments. So I still like how it turned out. I did the patterns and the engravings according to my mom's work. She does a lot of wine decoration art,
Mm-hmm.
wine bottle decorations. So that was my inspiration for that.
Yeah, I think especially that you can see how the precision of the decoration. There's kind of a tension between that and the handmade shape, the form being a little off center, a little rough. You know, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And you can't really see here. Maybe you can see it in the other one. But all of this additional roughening of texture of I realize I'm gesturing with my mouse, but nobody can see my mouse. The texturing, the raw texture around these bands. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, thank you. Now, Chick. Tell us about Chick, Jenna.
So that one, I feel like this one I had made more to please others than myself. Oftentimes when I have a commission, lots of people tend to shoot for the farm animals, and I was really just trying to make this one as cute as possible. I hope I succeeded. But I also really, it's a funny story with my commission and the animals, though. I originally didn't paint animals. I used to like painting more like abstract figures and more, I guess you could say, spook art. And I had a commission for an animal. It was a farm animal. I think my first one was a pig. And yeah, I just discovered that I really enjoy painting them. So it's funny how, you know, one thing like that, like, you know, if I had said no, I wouldn't have known that I enjoy it so much.
And then, not to spoil, but then look what happens. It just becomes nothing but animals all the time. So you can see that something that you really like to do is centralize that composition and then create that really pixelated background with a tighter brushstroke at the center, at the focus point. Yeah. Yeah.
I really try and make the animals the focal point. But at the same time, I like to make it, I guess you could say, as loud as you can with color-wise. I really like to incorporate a lot of, I guess, brightness to my art. And I really like high contrast colors. And also this one, I really like to, if I can, for myself, paint the animals that are important to me, like the bee. I'm an avid gardener, so I see them often in my backyard, and I've been starting to work on other ones. I started on actually a green sweat bee the other day. They're quite pretty looking. But yeah, the honeybee is very important for me, in my opinion. It's very important for life. I guess really like. That without the bees, we wouldn't have a lot of things.
For sure. And then this silly smile.
Yeah, this one was, I started it, I want to say maybe even 2 years ago. And this one transformed a few times over the years because I was never happy with it. And then I finally landed on like how it looks now with the contrast and the colors, and I'm finally satisfied. But yeah, it goes to show, you know, sometimes you just need to work it out over a period of several years to get your final results.
Yeah, for sure. I think what really makes the painting work is that shadow on the neck, and then under the farther ear, and that kind of diagonal look gets created without needing to use any particular light tones in the background. It's all just a color wheel effect, right?
Yeah.
And you told me also that this one part of your process is just continuing with that pointillist background and just layer and layer and layer, as opposed to having a goal in mind, an effect in mind. You work kind of more intuitively with those backgrounds.
Yeah, I like to go with the flow. I like I said, I really enjoy the high contrast, and it's kind of, I think it's a little bit my hairdresser brain. It makes me think about colors and how they go together. I guess it's artist brain too, but I like to think that from working with the color wheel, I try to really what'll work and what won't. And
Yeah. As opposed to, so these are obviously really limited palettes. Are those decisions that you make before you start painting, or is this similarly something that happens?
Yeah, pretty much similarly. I just kind of I paint. I always paint my subject matter first, and then my background last.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm very indecisive with my background. So I like to, like this bird. Also, the chick went through a few transformations too. Actually, there was probably about 3 different backgrounds under that until I was happy.
Okay, interesting. And then you, I assume, go over and sharpen up those outlines so that you don't have to be so precious with your edges.
Yeah.
And is there something about this repetitive motion that touches on what you were saying about a kind of art therapy element to this?
Yeah, 'cause I like with my chronic pain and everything, it's quite helpful in times of stress and when I'm not feeling well, and I for some reason I find it quite calming, and I don't know, something about that color, it really tends to make me feel good, like it just it just really helps me to I guess handle what I'm going through too. It's just the repetitive nature is just, I guess, satisfying.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We have a comment from Cheryl on YouTube that this is a beautiful show and there's a lot of talent in Brandon. And yes, I agree. I should mention several times, I should have mentioned off the top, and I'll say it again, that the show closes tomorrow. The exhibition closes tomorrow. So anybody who's able to, this is really like so many, one of those that should be seen in person. Okay, so I would say in no particular order, but I believe who we have left is Jan, and this I don't want to call it a triptych. It's 3 individual pastel drawings, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you repeat your question?
So these are pastel drawings?
These are oil pastels,
Oil pastel.
and I don't use any professional oil pastels, just little children stuff.
That's great.
I was always fascinated with that medium. It is not easy medium, particularly that there's a limited number of colors, and in order to make the painting colorful, you have to blend those colors. And blending this, they have special paper blending sticks, but I don't like them. I prefer blending with my fingers, and after completing painting like that, half of my fingers are gone. They were wearing off. But the thing is that the effect of the color is amazing.
Yeah.
And I concentrate on portraying people in their variety of situations, life situations. Some are depressed, some are happy, some are close to other people, some are loners, and so on. So there's always something happening in that work, and this dictates the mood of the work too. And in pastels, traditionally pastels were rather light color, and I sometimes go into very dark, like in this particular painting. I go into dark colors, and it works beautiful.
Yeah.
And if you really analyze in the original, the layers of the pastel upon layers is just amazing. It's lots of works. Like if I work on a painting, these are small paintings, relatively, they 18 by 24 inches. If I work on that painting 8 hours a day, it takes me 3 days to complete it.
Yeah.
That's 24 hours of work. And after that, I am so exhausted, I have to take a week break.
Yeah. You can really see with this one all of that blending that goes in because of those gray tones, right? That's all. None of those are pure colors. Those are all blended colors.
Yeah. Oh, I always look at interaction of people.
Yeah.
Some of them are in family settings, some of them are lovers, some of them are strangers, and so on. But observing people, it's very, very useful. I will go, say, to a public gathering or something like that, and I stand in a corner and I watch people. I don't watch what is happening around, just watch people. And I memorize certain situations, and then I have ideas for painting. I never had problem. What should I paint?
Right.
I have problem. I don't have enough time and energy to paint because ideas I have always there, and I experimented with different mediums. I did watercolors. I did charcoal drawings. I did oil paintings, acrylic paintings, all kind of things. And lately I started working on pastels, and I love it. I also did some wax crayon work.
Again, just Crayola crayons, not fancy crayons.
Pardon?
Just student crayons, not fancy ones.
Hands on, no, on wax crayons I don't use hands because you cannot blend them with hands.
Yeah.
You blend them color with color, no, by applying one on top of the other.
Yeah, I'm saying it's very challenging crayons.
And I use just ordinary box of 16 Crayola wax crayons. Children stuff. I'm child at heart.
Yeah, very interesting. And so when you talk about the interactions between people, before we open it up to a larger conversation, and again, anybody who's watching from home, you can ask questions in your comment section. Talk to me a little bit more about what you mean by interactions between people. So these are friends. These are friends. This is a meeting. So is this strangers? And then this is a family. And what's the emotional content that you're trying to get across here?
Oh, it's like if you look at that family picture, you see that the family is not very happy. They are sad for some reason. There is some conflict there, and conflict is underlined by using of red and green in a background. These are contrasting colors that emphasize the conflict. Color is very important in the work of art, and very, very often you use this as an expression of feeling more than as a representation of object. And thanks to Paul Gauguin, who invented use of non-objective use of color, accidentally, when he was painting in Haiti, his supplier sent him always paints from France. And he was painting all those tropical paintings and tropical fruits and so on, and tropical women. And unfortunately, orange paint did not arrive, but he sent him oversupply of blue. So he started painting oranges blue. And that was non-objective use of color. He invented that and then used very effectively. So be bold with color. Don't restrict yourself, because grass is not always green. See? Sky is not always blue. So be very, very, very brave with use of color. But of course, you have to understand what color means too.
Yeah. These three together especially tell that story really well about that emotional carrying. So thank you all so much. We can bring up the slides again if we want to refer to them. I'll start by by referencing a comment from YouTube by Total G, who talks about this mix of styles, backgrounds, and perspectives. We also wish that you could see it in person, Total G. But this, I wanted to ask what you think about the influence of your backgrounds, your educations, your cultures on what it is that you put forward. Like who are your role models? What's your aspiration? Right. I'll start with Oreo.
So my inspiration is people around me, I guess. I really like to observe people's behavior. Of course, the artwork they do. Even not just artists, but people in their own specific professions, how passionate they are. And I heard this one thing by someone say that when a person is passionate about something, he would do all the things that he's not passionate about passionately to ensure that his passion is successful throughout his life. And I was really motivated by that. And yeah, it's fun to observe people. And my mentor, Deepak Gaikwad, he taught me everything about painting, drawing, sketching, and everything. So he trained me really well, and I just wanted to thank him on this platform. So
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments on that? Because we have a lot of self-taught artists here as well. I wanted to start with Oreo as a currently enrolled art student at Tengnamoe, and Doug, you're self-taught. Jenna's self-taught. What's the motivation there?
Well, I guess. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You go first.
I've been influenced throughout my whole life by other people, really, and I grew up in a family where my mother was interested in arts and crafts and things like that. So I was, and as a teenager, I drew quite a bit, things like that. But as I tell people, when I became a man, I put away childish things, i.e., in other words, for many years I didn't do much art. I was busy with other things in life, right? And then in the mid 1980s in Edmonton, I decided to take a watercolor course. Anyways, went on and on. So there have been a fairly long list of people, teachers, artists that influenced me as I've taken various courses and so on over the years. But I'll mention one particular artist. Well, first of all, a color field artist that probably has influenced my approach to this is Mark Rothko, who was an American artist. And I won't go into the details, but having seen some of his works and in the flesh in the Tate Gallery Tate Modern in London, it prompted me to try and say, well, what can I do with acrylics? Okay, another point of view in terms of figure painting, I'm going to give credit to an Alberta artist named Tessa Nunn, and she's a person that really caught my attention in terms of figure painting and the techniques and things like that. So I will give certainly public credit to her for part of my journey and an influencer in my figure world. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Jenna?
And then I guess for me, as far as inspiration goes, I've always been very, very interested in art from a young age. And there was a period of time for me where I didn't really think about it. Like it was when I was kind of straight after high school up until I was for about 4 years or so. Because I think I got kind of caught up in work and life, and I didn't make the time for myself. And then yeah, I started doing a little bit here and there, and I started getting the odd commission, and it really got me more interested in doing it again. And then I don't know if anybody else found, but when the pandemic hit, being that my job, I was right up in people's faces, I didn't have a lot of work quite often for a bit there, and I found myself with a lot more spare time to paint, focus on painting more, and I feel like that really helped to reignite things again. And I don't want to say that it was a good thing what happened, because it wasn't, but for me, being forced to take time off of work and such, it did actually help me to gain more perspective in things that I was interested in and wanted to pursue more in life.
Yeah, I want to. So we have a funny dialogue happening between Facebook and YouTube. I don't know how this happened, if it's a coincidence or not. But Melanie had a question for everybody who's in the exhibition. I know that Melanie submitted to several member shows in the past as well. If you found any unlikely parallels between your work and another artist's work in the exhibition as you were walking around the room. And then somebody on Facebook, seemingly unrelated, says, I see a strong theme of color impact. And that's just between the five of you, which I think is really telling. So any work that you saw within the member show? Tengnamoe.
I like Oreo's work and the detail of the hands and the vibrant color. I like
vibrant color for sure. Jan?
You want me to answer that question? No, I don't find connection, because I believe that every artist is an individual and every artist does totally different work. There might be some influences, but they are minor things. But I have another statement that I want to make, and very disappointing to all of you artists. We are all sick people, because art is a disease and there is no cure for it. You will fight for the rest of your life. You will never be happy. You might produce some satisfying works. You might get some rewards if you sell the work or exhibit the work, but there is no cure for it. Once you get it, that's a life sentence.
It's true.
Yeah.
True? Don't listen to him, Oreo.
Yen, the only cure is to do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
We have no choice. We have no choice.
Right.
I tell you one short story. In 1973, I did a studio downtown in Brandon, and I went with my wife and her stepfather for a drink to a bar, and we're sitting in a bar, and there was a TV going on, and on TV they announced there is a fire in security block on 9th Street. I said, that's my studio. So we left the drinks, jumped in the car, drove to 9th Street, and I just watched my studio burning.
Mhm.
I spent lots of money buying supplies, just brought it to the studio a few hours before, because I did a show coming up, and everything burned down. I have no money to paint. So for over 2 years, they didn't have grants at that time for artists, no any assistance or whatsoever. I was poor like a rat. For 2 years, people were asking me, are you painting? I say, no. Why not? I'm a retired artist. And for 2 years, I was a retired artist, and I saved some money, and I started buying stuff and painting again. You cannot get away from it. That's it.
Right.
You are a prisoner.
Yeah.
Lucie, can I say something before we close?
Please do.
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations to my uncle, who's my inspiration in painting. He just got the top award in visual arts and sculpture in the Philippines, and he's my inspiration, and he's the one that I'm doing this. The passion is from him.
Yeah.
So I just want to come. Yes.
Yeah. So tell us his name again.
Oh, Nemesio Miranda, but he's called Miranda in his painting. So yeah.
Great. Good for
By
him.
the way, I like your haystacks. I like your haystacks, and I like the way you use color in those paintings.
Thank
I
you.
like the way you use the found material too. I like doing that too. I do it maybe a little differently. I tend to kind of hound Facebook Marketplace and any of the online platforms or thrift stores for used art supplies. I think
You know what?
That's awesome.
Same as me. I always buy canvases in thrift shop. I don't know if it's a sin to cover up those things, but hey, I just cover up with paint and then.
In new painting, doing the abstracted background with the animals and flowers, whatever you do, is very essential because it puts different perspective on the actual object. If they would be placed in a natural environment, they would disappear. So that's good.
Yeah. Well, I like to. We'll wrap up because we're about at the hour mark. But with Jan's disheartening assertion there, I'd like to remind everybody about this conversation and what Oreo said is his inspiration is that if you're passionate, you're passionate. And I think that every single one of you have, whatever your day job has been, it's been an act of art, right? As you're talking about these things, you're finding things in the trash in the thrift stores as you shop around, right? In engineering, in teaching, right? It's all art.
Yeah.
Because you have the disease. As young.
It's a fun disease, I'd say.
Great. Does anybody have anything you'd like to say before we close up? No?
AGSM rock.
I want to say one thing that we should say thank you to the art gallery for organizing this member show, because particularly this year was the best member show ever.
It was fabulous this year.
Very, very professional, very good show.
Yeah.
So thank you very much to the gallery.
Well, as the gallery, I thank the AGSM members who started it 18 years ago by just saying, I want my colleagues to see my art.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it doesn't exist unless it gets seen.
Yeah.
So, thank you all so much for showing us.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
See you next year. See you next year.
See you next. Well, I'll see you before that.
See you around.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful New Year, everybody.
Thank you.
for your
You
art.
too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.